Good afternoon, all. I trust everyone is safe and well, and welcome to today's Civil Designer Open Classroom webinar. Wednesday is our Roads Day, and we welcome back Cameron Boyle, who will be facilitating today's class. As always, please feel free to use the text chat service on your GoToWebinar floating dialog to ask us any questions you may have during Cameron's presentation. So, good afternoon, Cameron. Please take it away.
Thank you very much, Charles. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Open Classroom, where we then fundamentally look at your junction design. If you recall from last time, I've already done the add roundabout functionality where we looked at the Stockdale vertical alignment design in a lot of detail. Today, we're going to be looking at the add junction or intersection design, as some of you may know it. We'll also be looking over here on the right-hand side at the Culdesac. And then further down the road, we'll also look at the mini roundabout design. Before you do any road design, it's important to take note of your drainage. So what I've done beforehand is I've gone to my height shading and turned it on just to take note that the blue is the lower points, the green being the medium heights, and then the red being the high points. So you preferably want all your water or storm water to drain to the lower points. Now, some tools that you can use for junction design verification is going to your display settings, selecting road strings, and go and specify your drainage display. There you can ask Civil Designer to highlight where you got flat slopes, put in high or low points, and then go and specify which settings to use. At the same time, you also have the option to display your road contours as well as your slope arrows. And using that, you have a nice graphical representation of what's happening on your design. Looking at this particular junction design over here, a couple of things I'd like to point out. If I select this road, right-click, Road Operations, and go to the vertical alignment, this here is where the tie point is of the intersection. So what you could do is you could go and once again right-click, select Edit PI, and go make changes to your vertical alignment design. You could also go and select Move PI, click on a PI point, and go and ensure that the joining grade is sufficient. Also, rather important is you need to ensure that the crossfall on this road is more or less the same as your main road's longitudinal grade. And there's numerous ways of doing this. One of my preferred functions is to go to your terrain mode, go to graphical, and select annotate slope. Go and specify that you'd like to use the strings model for interpolation. And then on your main road, go and click on 2 points just to get a good idea as to what the grade looks like at that point. Not too sure if you can see that, but I've got negative 1.72. Now, bearing that in mind and going back to the intersecting road, I would go to the roads mode, go to alignment, edge levels, edit super, looking at the crossfalls, and then just checking at the bottom over here. If I go and select a point, you can see where the red cross is represented wherever I go and left click, but there I've got more or less the same grade. In that case, I know I'll have a smooth transition from the one road into the other. Another option is to select the main road, go to Section, Graphical Edit, and then click where you want to see the cross-section. Go to your display settings and go and switch on longitudinal grade. Then press in either page up or page down Again, there you can get a good idea as to which grade, longitudinal grade you've got. In order to get rid of that annotated slope, I'm going to undo on my keyboard. With the design formalities out of the way, let's move on to the junction design. Going back to my display settings, and I'm going to turn off my contours as well as my slope arrows. I'm then go to my CAD layers, and I'm going to turn on a couple of CAD layers that will help me through the design process. I've gone and put in a couple of CAD layers for explanation purposes. When you do this junction or intersection design, you stand in over here, and all points left and right are relative to this position. I've taken a screen grab of this, and I'll use it for explanation purposes during the design process. So I go to Junctions, Add Junction. Reading my prompt, I need to indicate the intersecting road. So I simply take my cursor there and left click on the intersecting road. And then once again, reading my prompt, indicate the main road. So I go to the main road, left click. Civil Designer has automatically picked up which is my intersecting road and which is my main road. If I'm not happy with that, I can always graphically indicate otherwise. During the design process, I've gone and specified I want a coordinate interval on my bar mouths as every half a meter. Now I need to point out the divider islands, which we'll put in later. This particular project, we'd only be driving on the left-hand side, and the minimum area for the divider islands is 3 squares. So if we do insert divider islands and Civil Designer finds that the area of the divider island is less than 3 squares, it ignores it. You can go and use a different template if you wish for your bar mouths. And all the information that we are about to do can be saved and loaded for another design later on. Selecting the left curve. Civil Designer automatically goes and puts in text indicating which is left and right. Now, if you recall earlier, I went and put in a symbol over here. So we're standing at this position when you're looking at your intersection design. This would be your left curve as indicated over here. This is your lead in information, which you would insert over here. And then leading out information would be the information over here. And this is really just your center radius, which we'll change to 15. This is a really helpful diagram. If you go and make changes to the settings, you can see how the diagram dynamically updates. And at the same time, Civil Designer goes and grays out the information that you don't require. So with the curve information, you only require the radius and the offset, whereas if I go and select the taper option, you can see my diagram updates, and these two cells now become active. Turning off the taper option, and then looking at the lead out information. Same thing applies, you can go and specify a curve and taper. Now, if you aren't quite sure what the taper option would do, I've made provision for that beforehand. It's one of the common questions we get asked in our very popular training courses. How do you go about putting in a slip lane? So this is an example of a gentle slip lane. In that case, you would use the taper option and specify your grade and offset. Turning that off. Looking at your edge conditions. So the vertical grading, very important. And remember these two options. You can either have a straight linear gradient or an S-curve. You can go and specify to use a curb on your bow mouths. And once again, we've got a whole library of curbs that you can go and select from. Moving on to the left island, I can go and select divider island. either specify my own dimensions or I can pick it up from CAD. And I've got a good example of a CAD function that I'm going to show you. Let's stick to the manual way for now. Go and select Island Settings. This diagram shows you which dimensions are necessary, and you would then simply go and change the dimensions according to your design requirements. You also have the option of applying a different curve for your islands. Moving on to the right curve. And this time, instead of specifying things manually, I'd rather pick it up from CAD entities. We're looking at the bow mouth here. That's one of the reasons why I've gone and turned on this CAD layer over here. I'm going to pick up this CAD line or arc and use that to extract the bow mouth. You can see all my information over here is blank. I can then go and click on Indicate and then go and select that CAD line. If you've got more than one CAD entity, you can select numerous entities. Once you've got it selected, go and right-click and extract string. Again, you can go and specify which edge conditions to use. Looking at the divider island, again, this time specifying I want the CAD entities. Now, before I indicate the polylines, I need to go and make a bit of space here because I want to open up another drawing for explanation purposes. Now I'm going to go and select Indicate Polylines, and I'm going to go and minimize this. Back in Civil Designer, I'm going to go and select the polyline representing my island. Here you can see it's been highlighted. Now, if I didn't specify divider islands, I also have the option of putting in a center island where you'd go and specify which dimensions to use. Looking at the layout, and this is where my new diagram comes into effect. Just going to go and move that a bit. This is what Civil Designer uses to do your bow mouth design. We're looking at 4 points on your two roads. We're looking at point LC, and this is on the main road. So our main road being this road over here. There's the LC point. Civil Designer would automatically go and pick up chainage value on the main road, in this case being 335, which is the LC indicated point over here. Looking at the next point, right of junction or RC, you can see the coordinates automatically picked up and the chainage value. There it is, RC over here. Now, in some extreme cases, you as the designer are able to go and make changes to these values. It could be that due to your coordination interval or due to intersection being on curves, you want to go and put in your own value there. You could go and put in which value to use, and you could go and specify the fixed option. And in that case, you override the chainage value that Civil Designer put in for you. Looking at the next point, intersection point on main road, that being point PI, I've indicated on the diagram where PI is. Looking at the last point, intersecting road, IP1, I've indicated again on the diagram. With these points, remember where you stand, where your eye position is. The width left option over here is from IP1 to the left edge where my lead-in text is situated on that side of the road. Civil Designer automatically picks up that width. It automatically goes and picks up the left grade, and from that it's able to interpolate the elevation at that point. It knows what the longitudinal grade is at that point of the design, and in a similar manner it picks up my LC position with its grade and width in order to interpolate a point on the edge. If we recall earlier, under the edge conditions, we specified a vertical curve of either linear or S-curve. So depending on what you put in there, Civil Designer will use the existing grade of your main road and the existing grade of your intersecting road. It would split the bow mouth into segments, and from that it interpolates the elevations along your bow mouth. Now remember that these are design tools that Civil Designer gives you, but at the end of the day, as a designer, you need to ensure that you have sufficient slope along these bow mouths, and I'll show you how you can go about doing that. Then over here, depending again on whether you selected linear or S-curve grading, you can apply this to the entire junction, and that would include your taper options as well, or if you only want to apply it to the center curve. Once again, you can go and save these settings and load them at a later stage. Clicking on OK, and Civil Designer would now use the parameters that you've specified and go and design your junction. Let's go and maximize. I'm going to turn off those CAD layers. And then just focus in on the island display settings. I'm not sure if you can see a bit of yellow there, but if you go to your display settings and you select plan layout, I could very easily just go and select my pen color. So I don't have to worry about predetermined styles and make changes to styles along the design. Now you can see this is a very fast process. As you go and make changes to it, you'll see the display settings like your contours and your arrows would also dynamically update. Looking at the other side of the junction, then go through the process again, go back to junctions, add junction, specify intersecting road, specify main road. As mentioned before, if you've already saved an intersection design, you can simply go and load it. Go and specify which design to load and click on Open. Coming back to the design verification, using some of the tools I pointed out earlier, I'm going to go and check that this is correct. Going back to the display settings, changing my island colors, and then going to the road string display settings. Clicking on the drainage display, saying anything flatter than 0.5%, I want Civil Designer to highlight for me. I choose to have the high points displayed and specify which symbol to use, what size the symbol should be, and then also specifying low points, and we give you a symbol option here of curb inlet. You also have the option to go and put on the actual elevation. Turning on the road contours, you could go and turn on the label, for instance, specify your line styles, and then turn on your display arrows. So looking over here, you can see that your stormwater would drain into the lower section, using my height shading as an indication of that. And then this particular bow mouth over here has a high point where the circle is. I can either go and edit junctions and redo the design, or I can go to review junctions where all the elevations will be listed in my output bar. But in this case, I'm going to go to the bow mouth editor, and I'm going to go and select the bow mouth. I can go to my display settings and go and specify what I'd like displayed. I've chosen to see what my cross sections look like. And because of Civil Designer's full integration, you also have the option of switching on your crossing services. As I go and move my cursor, you can see the cross section update. And looking at the cross section, it's also giving me an indication of my islands. Looking in the plan view, you can see there's a cross. So when that cross enters the circle, that is my highest point. So on my long section, I can go and click on the highest point and get the elevation. I can go and make changes to this elevation. I can use the toolbars on the left-hand side to go and move points, grade points, interpolate points, to change the vertical alignment between different points. I can also go and save this and print it. Turning off my contours and slope arrows. Moving on to the cul-de-sac design. I want to go and put a cul-de-sac over here. Quite easy. I go back to junctions, go and select add cul-de-sac. Reading my prompt, I need to indicate the position, so I'm going to the end or the beginning of this road and I'm left clicking. Placing my cursor on the type option, I can then move my mouse wheel and browse through the different types available. Looking at the diagram, I get an indication of what information is needed. Looking at radius and dimensions, specifying which curb to use from our library of curb options. We do give you the option to go and edit the curb if you'd like to go and customize them. When Civil Designer does the cul-de-sac design, you can go and specify at which coordinate interval you'd like the coordinates. You have the option to go and specify your own grade if you look at the diagram on the top over there. Alternatively, you can use the existing grade. Once again, you can go and save these settings and load it at a later stage. Once you're happy with it, go and click on OK. During the design process, Civil Designer would put in your coordinates. You can go and specify where you want these coordinates displayed. I've gone and chosen to put it on my screen, so I'm going to show you what that looks like. There's my design done for me, and there's the circle indicating the high point. You could again go and turn on your contours and slope arrows. Looking at the output window, I'm just going to move this a bit bigger. And all your points are listed with the coordinates and the information you would require to peg out the road. And that is applicable to any junction design. You're also able to go and plot your junctions in a plan view with the coordinated table. Unfortunately, I won't have the time today to show you this. Moving on to the mini roundabout design and using my predefined zoom views, I now go to junctions, add mini roundabout. Reading my prompt, I indicate the first intersecting road, indicate my main road, and if I wanted to have a three-way roundabout, I could press escape. In this case, I'm then include the northern road as well. Civil Designer populates which roads we're working with. If you wanted to go and make changes to that, you could go and graphically indicate a different road. You can see we're doing a four-way roundabout design. And then we've got options of crossfill. Using my mouse wheel, I can go and browse through the different options. And if you look at the diagram on the bottom right-hand side, it gives me a preview of what crossfill options are available. In this example, I'm going to go and use the draped option, where the circle will be draped onto the main road's crossfill. You have the option of applying the curb to the inside circle. Looking at the diagram, you need to go and specify your radius and your lane width. This is important because that determines your bow mouth radius. Alternatively, you can go and specify a minimum bow mouth radius. Specify your crossfill and your coordination interval. We also give you the option to go and put in a center island, and those would be the islands indicated on the diagram. If you go and click on that, you could go and specify what dimensions to use. Alternatively, again, you could pick it up from CAD, as I showed you in my previous examples. You could go and save this and load it at a later stage. I've got an i7 PC, 8th generation, 2.2 gigahertz, 8 gig of RAM. Civil Designer probably did about 15 pages of calculation there. Looking at the entire project again, I'm going to turn on some more CAD layers where I've drawn in my road markings. Switching off the CAD layers I used for the design. And then viewing the project in a 3D format. Using my predefined zoom views, I'm able to visually verify my different junction designs. Looking at the Culdesac, looking at the Miniroundabout, and then returning back to the intersection junction. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. If you do have any additional questions, please let us know. Cheers for now. Back to you, Charles.
Thank you for the masterclass, Cameron, and thank you to all who attended today. See you all tomorrow at the same time and place using the same link when Chris will be covering water house connections. Have a great afternoon and goodbye for now.